Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Rush. And today I'm delighted to have a legend with me who's going to talk football with us, favorite hobby, the thing we really like to do. And the childhood hero of many wide receivers and other footballers, Mr. OJ McDuffie, someone who has set so many records at the school level, went to Penn State University, and then at the NFL level, led in the number of receptions in 1998. That was quite a record. So, first of all, a very warm welcome, OJ. Welcome to the show.
All right, man. I appreciate you having me, man. I'm pumped up to talk a little bit about whatever. I guess I'm excited.
Absolutely. And see, I'll be honest. I've gone through a lot of the work you have done and the kind of interviews you have given. It always starts with how you set those records in school life, and then how it went into Penn State University. How was your sort of transition from the college towards the NFL level? I want to do it differently. Let's start from the point about the time with Miami Dolphins when you felt that day you achieved the dream, you attained something which you always felt as a child you might end up doing.
Yeah, man. It was honestly, it was a dream come true. I mean, as a child, like you talked about, a lot of kids sit there in their backyards or in the schoolyards or wherever they might be, dreaming about playing in NFL. And I had the same dream. I absolutely had the same dream. And the fact that the Miami Dolphins helped me, achieve that dream, in April of 1993, it honestly was a dream come true because, you can always dream about it, but hell, less than 1% of the guys in the world make it to the NFL. And the fact that I had that opportunity on that day that Don Shula called me when I was sitting in the living room with my mom, it was just truly amazing. Honestly, as you can tell, a dream come true.
Right. And spending time with Shula, getting that call from Shula, someone who has been, an absolute legend coach in the entirety of the NFL. As soon as you went in, what was the atmosphere like? How was your relationship with Don, and how it allowed you to sort of transition into a player who was ready for the big stage? Because we have seen a lot of times, you being a first round pick yourself, you've seen a lot of top picks who've done exceedingly well at the initial level. When they move into the NFL, if the coaching atmosphere is not right, if the team atmosphere isn't quite there, they sort of end up disappearing unfortunately, after a little bit of time. But you actually peaked really well into the NFL. So, what kind of role did Don play in that?
Well, I'll tell you, I was truly blessed. A lot of guys want to get, a lot of guys want to get drafted in the top 5, top 10, number 1 overall pick. But the fact that I was number 25 meant that I was going to a damn good team. That team, obviously, the year before I got there, they lost in the AFC Championship game at home. And so I knew no matter what that I was going to a really good team. And going into that atmosphere, I was just pleasantly surprised of, the guys that were in that locker room when I got there, the Urban Friars, even Mark Duper was there. And of course, Dan Marino, Keith Jackson, Mark Ingram. Being on a great team helped me out a lot because I had a little more time to develop as a wide receiver. A lot of guys that are drafted sooner, they have to go in there and make an immediate impact in their position because usually that's a position of need for teams. So when they're drafting those guys, they can't waste a pick on a guy that, they're going to give 2 or 3 years to develop. They've got to go in and play right now. I was afforded the time and, to really sit back and learn, the offense, to learn the NFL. And that was one thing that Coach Shula really, really helped me out with. Mike Westhoff was my special teams coach. And Mike Westhoff was a guy that said, OJ, we're going to start you off just returning punts and kickoffs, and we'll work your way into playing wide receiver. And that was great for me. And really, honestly, just learning the business of football, that gave me a great opportunity to do that without worrying about having to go out there and make as many plays as a wide receiver as a lot of guys that would come into my position being in the first round would have to do.
Right. And if I'm not wrong, you were there when the transition period was also going on, when Shula was towards the end of his coaching career, and then Jimmy Johnson came in. So during that phase, what was your relationship with the new coach, and how did you really get a hold of things around you? Was it an abrupt one, or did you feel everything fell into the place?
No, it was tough. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not a big Jimmy Johnson fan, and we both know that. He knows that. He's not a fan of mine. I'm not a fan of his, and so the transition was tough. A couple guys on the team, myself and Marino, and other guys had to go back and prove ourselves to him that we could play football at a high level. And I was one of those guys, and fortunately, I was able to prove that to him, and had a few years with him as my head coach. Yeah, as a going from Don Shula to Jimmy Johnson was truly a letdown for me because, I went from one great coach to just an all right coach.
Right. And I mean, it can end up having a massive impact on a player like you and a player who had great potential. And when it comes to potential, you, I mean, definitely had reached the peak of your career in 1998. And after that, you ended up performing well too. But I know it's a sensitive thing to talk about, but towards the end of your career, it came out to a very abrupt end. You had a lot left in you, but that injury really stunted a career which looked like it's going to peak and it's going to stay there at the top. So tell me a little bit about how psychologically how it made an impact on a person like you who was an achiever right throughout school to the college then to the highest level, and after achieving all that, suddenly things coming to an abrupt end. How did it impact you?
Yeah, it was tough. It really was. It impacted me a lot, physically, obviously, mentally as well. Um, you said it best, man. I went through my whole football career from Pee Wees to junior high to high school to the college game, and then most of my pro career without any major injuries. For me to get hurt, in the '99 season, it was devastating. It really was. So for me to have to try to work my way through that, the rehab, the mental process of it all, still trying to prove myself to Coach Johnson. It was tough, and it weighed on me. It weighed on my family. Obviously, it weighed on my teammates as well. So, just being able to persevere and try to get back out there after multiple surgeries on my foot, it was a tough deal. It really was, and ultimately ended my career. So, to be at the highest of highs at the end of my career, that probably was the lowest of lows when you have to leave the game not on your own will, but because of the will of an injury. And honestly, though, most guys don't leave the game on their own terms. Most guys are either forced to retire. Some guys have injuries, like myself. Very few Tom Brady's and Peyton Manning's out there can retire when the hell they want to. So that's just the nature of the beast.
And definitely I have to say the kind of position they played and you played, that also makes a major difference. A lot more chances of a wide receiver getting injured than a quarterback. And talking about that, I mean, in 1998, I keep going back to that sort of year, because whenever I talk to someone who really likes football and has been following it for decades now, that year belonged to you. As far as punt returns are concerned, you had 90 odd catches, 10 punt returns without any fumble. I remember all the facts correctly because I've been going through all that. And you were absolutely scintillating in that season. So, what clicked? I mean, I want to know from a star pro athlete like you, what clicks at that one particular moment, which makes the season all about you?
Yeah, I tell you, we were getting better and better, and my relationship with Marino was getting better and better. We were always on the same page. If you look at that season, the first 8 games, when there was a 16-game season, the first 8 games, I think we had 30 receptions. In the last 8, we had 60. And think about that, 90 receptions actually led the league back then. That wouldn't even be in the top 20 nowadays. But I think the fact that we were on such the same page and we had such a great rapport with each other, and ball security was always huge, making every catch, not putting the ball on the ground as a receiver, not putting the ball on the ground as a return guy. And I think that helped us to be successful. You turn the ball over, you give teams momentum, and bad things really happen for the team. We don't want to put the defense in a situation like that either. So I think that year was like we were on the up. We were headed on the upslope of being very, very great together when everything was cut short, at the end of that, at the end of the next year. And going into the next year, we had a great start to 99 until that injury happened. So 98 was great. It really was. And, we got some people, especially Jimmy Johnson, that said that Danny threw the ball to me too much, or, that all kinds of BS. But I'm going to tell you this, Danny trusted me. I trusted Danny, and we had just a great relationship out there. And that's why it clicked so well.
Right. And I mean, not really having that sort of atmosphere where you are getting the kind of support from the people who are in the top management and still churning out great numbers. That has a lot to do with the kind of chemistry you have with your team members, which brings me to Dan Marino again. The kind of champion he has been, what was the psychology about which he shared with his players, the kind of conversations, or what really was special about him that brought the best out of his teammates? Because the kind of people and the kind of athletes we have talked who've worked with Tom Brady, they say he had a process about him. He knew how to lift everyone around him, and as you know, he left millions out there because he settled for lesser salaries at one point of time because he wanted to have better players around him. So what about Marino really made it special and really allowed you and others to sort of bring your best game out?
Well, I think it all starts with talent first and foremost. We both know that both Tom Brady and Dan Marino have a ton of talent. And Tom displayed that right away, and sure did Dan Marino. What he was doing in the mid '80s as a quarterback in a league that pretty much just ran the football all the time. It was truly, truly special. And for me, to be able to go down to Miami as a wide receiver and play with the great Dan Marino was amazing. So it starts off with his ability. We all know that he has great, great, great talent. Then you look at his mentality. A student of the game, knew the offense inside and out. But not only that, though, his confidence it oozed out to the rest of the offense. We knew that if it was late in the game, we need to go down and get a score. We knew that Dan Marino was the guy that could drive us down there and either get us a field goal if we needed it, which he never wanted. He always wanted to score a touchdown to win a game. But if we needed one, he would still manage that. But we always knew that we can get down the field and get in the end zone because of his confidence, but also his ability. So he gave all of us confidence that we can go out there and get it done. And we all want to go out there and get it done for him. The five guys in front of him in the offensive line, always important because they never want anybody to touch or even get close to Dan Marino. For us, we always thought it was important to get open for Danny. If not, Danny could throw us open. He was such a pinpoint passer that he could throw us open a lot of times too. So the confidence that he brought to that he had always oozed out to us as well. And we felt really great as him being our leader. So that's where, that's what he brought to the table, man. Every single time, his toughness was unbelievable. People don't realize how tough he was. Some of the hits he took, some of the times he stood in the pocket and threw the football knowing he's about to get hit in the mouth. Some of the injuries that he had, he still played through them like nobody's business, man. Dan was an Iron Man. He was so tough and just a great teammate. And I was blessed, honestly blessed to play with the Hall of Famer.
I mean, that really explains why people really look him as a role model, and especially coming in from someone like you who has been in close corners with him and has done incredibly well. And the chemistry really shows whenever we go back and look at those highlights. And as far as chemistry is concerned, let's come down to the 2025 season and let's talk about Miami Dolphins. There seems to be something off about the quarterback and the wide receiver chemistry at this point of time about the Dolphins. And Tua recently, even he said that it's a work in progress when we talk about my relationship with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek, you all know, went on a tirade last season after all that happened. He said, "I'm out," and that then went on a whole apology tour and thing. And now he's back and into the reckoning, and things are looking good. But still, I mean, Tua is being very careful about what he wants to speak about his relationship with Tyreek. So you feel that the chemistry sort of is missing, and that might sort of push the team down coming the 2025 season.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about Danny and myself, and Danny with think about it, Mark Duper and Mark Clayton. Their relationship was spectacular. I think on and off the field they had a really good relationship. I think nowadays you see a lot of guys, they go to work together, but then they don't break bread together. Go out to dinner and spend time like that together. I don't know if that's a relationship that Tyreek and Tua have. But the fact that they've been together for these number of years and they're still trying to figure each other out, quote unquote, that's my quote. It's just puzzling to me. And I think that, where Danny and I vibed was more the time where everybody wasn't in the meeting room. We watched a lot of film together. That's how we were on the same page. For guys to be in the same system, same offense coordinator, same head coach, same quarterback, same wide receiver, and still trying to figure each other out is a little puzzling to me because it's been a few years now that they've had that opportunity. So I think that they have to get back to the basics. To get back to the basics of hanging out with each other, watching extra film together, even drawing some plays in the sand, just to when they see something on film, here's what we can do together. I think that's important. And at this time, at this level, at this point in their careers, they should be on that same page. So I'm looking forward to seeing if they can get back to what happened 2 years ago as an offense and the rapport they had together then. And it starts right now. Training camp is huge, and not only the time they have on the field when Mike McDaniel schedules it, but see if they do any side work. If they go on the other field when nobody's on there and get some work in too, because that was always critical too. You just can't do what's scheduled. You got to do some other work on your own, and hopefully they'll take advantage of this training camp and do that.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, that's where Mike McDaniel, I mean, apart from figuring the relationship out together, Mike McDaniel's role in the training camp also becomes very crucial, because there's been a lot of discussion about his role in the team and the kind of success he's expected of, but he hasn't really delivered. So what is your assessment of Coach McDaniel? You feel he's someone who is on the right track, or you feel he's missing something which is really putting the team, I mean, preventing the team from really going all the way through to the Super Bowl?
Well, they talked about culture, and Mike McDaniel went to the playoffs his first 2 years, and then we missed it last year. So I never expect us to go to playoffs with the same team 2 years in a row, pretty much, and then with the same team in the third year we don't make it. That's puzzling to me. So something has to give. And so I think that they talk about culture, they talk about responsibility. They talk about accountability, things. Those words right there are what happens most and foremost, and it starts at the top. It really starts with Mike, and Mike has got to be the one that's got to keep everybody in line. Everybody's got to be responsible. Everybody's got to be accountable. Everybody's got to be professional. And I think that's the key. We're not in college anymore. We're not in high school anymore. The coach did everything back then. Now we have grown men that need to go out there and make sure they do their part. Do your job, and Mike will do his job. And if everybody does their job and they do it professionally, then you're going to have a successful program. You talk about the New England Patriots. There was no more professional team in football than that team. Started with Belichick and then Tom, and then the rest of the guys fall in line. So the same thing has to happen here. It starts with Mike McDaniel, Tua Tagovailoa, and then the rest of the team should fall in line. Sometimes your best players aren't the quarterback. Tyreek's probably our best player. So he has to lead by example too. So he can be up there in that echelon too with Mike McDaniel, Tua, and Tyreek, and then the rest of the team should fall in line. So we need Tyreek to step up in that leadership role and be the guy that's also doing things right and showing the right examples for our team to be successful.
Right. And I mean, when your best player is sort of a character as Tyreek is, he's not someone who will just shut up quietly after a bad game and sit into the corner of a room and just figure out what has gone wrong. He's someone who is going to talk aloud about what has happened. And sometimes, I mean, we've heard discussions about people saying it's not absolutely right. But I also feel just going out and expressing yourself in the way Tyreek does shows you're still passionate about the outcome. End of the day, he's still getting paid what he wants. He's one of the finest players still in the league, one of the fastest, and he's a little feisty character. So what's your opinion about characters like Tyreek Hill, who are not afraid to really speak their mind and sometimes can put a few people on the edge?
Yeah, well, I don't mind him speaking his mind, but you know what? When you do that, you better go out there and show up every single Sunday, Monday, Thursday, whatever game we're playing, whatever day we're playing. You've got to be the one that goes out there and puts up, the numbers that we expect you to put up, put out the effort we expect you to put out, not take yourself out of football games, late when we're losing, not going off on your teammates. When you go off on your teammates, and I've done that before, but it's never going to happen on TV. It's going to be in the locker room. It's going to be in a private situation because you're trying to bring out the best in your teammates, never showing them up that way. Tua does a great job of never showing his teammates up, and I love that about our leader. But he's got to also, though, when you get in private moments, you got to let them know that, you got to do better. You have to play better, and I think that that's important. So for Tyreek to be as outspoken as he is, I need him to also be as outspoken on the football field in terms of his performance. I need him to go out there every single week. Nobody should be able to stop Tyreek Hill. Right. Nobody. And you look at other teams that have number one receivers. Nobody stops their number one receivers week in, week out. Nobody. Even though you go in and you game plan against it, they still go out there and get their numbers. We need Tyreek to go out there and get his numbers every single week, no matter what the situation is, overcoming whatever defense they bring at him, whatever coverage they might bring at him, two people on him. Hell, when you talk about the 98 season, I had two people on me a lot of times when I was in the slot, and Danny and I were still able to go out there and make plays and move the chains. So I think that no matter what Tyreek is, has done in the past, this is a new season. He really needs to go out there and lead by example and go out there and get his numbers. If Tyreek Hill gets his numbers every single week, the Miami Dolphins win football games.
Makes a lot of sense. And as far as your 98 season is concerned, I keep going back to that again and again. But because the game of football looks a lot different from what it was at that point of time and what it is at this point, especially it shows in the numbers as well. As you say, 90 receptions were good enough to sort of put you at the top of the league at that point of time. And now it's not quite the same thing. But that also shows that the game has softened up a little bit. People keep talking about how NFL has become a little softer than it used to be in the past. And, they have a lot of opinions about it. You, in your day, faced quite a few, feisty cornerbacks. Who really did make life the toughest for you?
Yeah, well, it started off my rookie year. In practice, Troy Vincent and JB Brown were tough to deal with. Like they were really, really hard to deal with. Then you go, and you're playing against other teams. You're playing against the Rod Woodsons. You're playing against the Deion Sanders and guys like that. And then you get later in your career, and you're playing against the Ty Laws. Those guys are always tough to deal with. And matter of fact, most of them got the best of me. Deion, I don't even think Danny threw the ball my way when Deion was guarding me, and I understand why. I get it. I'm not mad at Danny for that. But then going back to practice again, then you get a young, Sam Madison and the young Pat Surtain. You got to deal with those guys in practice. So those guys are the handful of guys that gave me the most fits. But I think those are the guys that prepare me most for, game day and being ready to play at the highest level. So, yeah, I think since we played New England twice a year, I think Ty Law was probably my biggest nemesis, for most of my career.
Right. And among the young cornerbacks, you feel anyone who can be a real, a real pain for some of the wide receivers of the current day?
Oh man, it's tough out there for these for these wide receivers, man. But you know what? The offense is so sophisticated, and the movements and the the motions and the different ways that coaches are designing plays to get guys open. It's tough on the defense. You can't touch them anymore. The 5-yard rule is strictly enforced. You can't hit them anymore. So it's tough on DB. So if you're just a great cover guy, that's the best thing you can be, as physical as you can be without getting penalized. And there's some guys out there. There are a lot of guys out there that are pretty good at it. But to find 2 or 3 on the team, that's the toughest task for every team. And like Dolphins right now, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do at cornerback position, and it's not going to be easy because they don't just grow on trees and they're not sitting around on their couch at home. So we'll see how they react to that.
Right. And among the current lot, especially, I feel you would have a very good idea about how we discussed the game has really transitioned from a really brutal, bone-breaking sort of game. We still have quite a few, grievous injuries coming up every year, but it definitely has become a lot safer than what it used to be in your day and age. So at that point of time, during your playing career, you felt any of those injuries you saw around which really make you think, why am I here? Why am I doing what I'm doing?
Well, you mentioned earlier that, the people say that the game has gotten softer. I feel like it had to get softer. The game has gotten bigger, stronger, faster from every single position. And the safety was definitely a concern. The rules needed to be changed so that guys could look out for each other when it came to the game of football. Blindside blocks from wide receivers or offensive guys, which was taking guys out. You're hitting guys over the middle above the shoulder pads. That's not that's not safe either. Protecting the quarterback to make a lot of money. Owners don't want those guys hurt, and we don't want to see the second or third string quarterback from the Patriots back in the day. We want to see Tom Brady. We want to see Peyton Manning. We want to see those guys. We want to see Tua Tagovailoa, Pat Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. We want to see those guys on the football field. So the rules needed to be softened up a little bit. The game is a physical game still. No matter what, it's a very, very physical game. Some grown-ass men out there that are alpha males that really want to impose their will on you. So the fact that it's gotten quote unquote softer, that's not true, because dudes are still getting the crap knocked out of them. The game is super fast, super physical. And I think more importantly, I think things have to be more strategic. Instead of just trying to pound people, you got to be strategic about what you're going to do offensively and defensively. And I think it's just for me, offense wins games for me. I'm an offensive guy. They always say defense. Of course, that's probably true, but I'd rather see us score 30, 40 points, you know what I mean, and lose or win, 42-28. I love a lot of points in the game, and I think that's what the NFL has gotten to, and it's been fun to watch.
And that's a fantastic point, because I clearly remember I had a conversation with a scout who was generally talking about how the game is going on. And we had a very low scoring encounter that day. And he was like, you know what, why people really love those low scoring thrillers? Because they happen once in a while. If they keep on happening every other week, people are going to say, come on, man.
Yeah.
We came here to see some touchdowns, some catches. We don't really want to see people just go down all the time.
Right. And you know what? I mean, hell, we're all in fantasy football leagues. Who wants that in fantasy football? You know, I can't like not want my receivers to have 10 catches, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. I can't have my quarterback, throw for 200 yards and that's it. So fantasy football drives a lot of that too, and I think it's important that it keeps everybody involved in the sport of football. That's been the biggest thing for everybody, man. And I think the fact that you're increasing offense and allowing offensive production and not having these three carries in a cloud of dust, rough it up, win the game 10-7 games. That's important for the sport. And I think it keeps everybody more engaged than anything.
Absolutely. And when we talk about those thrillers, what really adds a lot to the overall atmosphere is the kind of support we get from the crowd. Sometimes the boos really suck the life out of you. And the last few conversations we had with a few of our NFL legends and stars, they said even the best of the minds, psychologically the most Herculean ones, even they feel the wrath of the crowd sometimes when they really go heavy on them. So in your day and age, what stadium or what city's crowd really took the toll on you when you played?
You know what? I love playing on the road. I really did. I think the road games are the best games to play. Our home crowd was great. Our home atmosphere and the heat and everything was amazing. We played a lot of primetime games because we had Dan Marino, because we had Don Shula. So that was always fun. But to go into New England and play in that hostile environment, to go into Buffalo and play in that hostile environment, even going to Indianapolis, which was in our division back then, that was always a lot of fun. And of course, us and the Jets have never gotten along. So our division was so much fun to go on the road, and there's no better feeling than leaving those stadiums with a win, because we knew how mad the fans were. We knew how mad the other team was. We knew we, gained some ground or kept our lead in our division, and that was the best, man. But the Buffalo crowd, the New England crowd, the Indianapolis crowd, and of course the Jets crowd, they were so mean to us that I absolutely loved it.
That makes a lot of sense. That really tells you the kind of religion sport really has become, something which really unites the entirety of the city, and it can really act as a true force, especially against your nemesis. And I have a few friends in Philadelphia who are very, very adamant, like, we will stay inside if Eagles win the last Super Bowl, we'll do this, we won't step out. The city goes
right.
once they win, but they ended up on the street as soon as they won. So that's the spirit of the game. You saw those visuals, what happened in Philadelphia after they won?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course, man. I'm jealous. I'm super jealous, man. And, I've been blessed down here to go to a lot of parades. I went to the Heat's parades twice. I went to the Marlins parade twice. I went to the Panthers parade twice. But I really need to see a Dolphin parade. That's what I'm waiting for, man. That's the parade that all of South Florida is waiting for. And you get jealous when you see these other teams having these parades. Thank goodness their parades are always looking really cold. So I like the fact that they have to at least have cold parades. I gotta rain on their parades a little bit. You know what I mean? With some cold weather. Right. Down here, it's gonna be nice and warm and comfortable. And I'm looking forward to that day.
Absolutely. And the kind of team Miami has, fans can really hope that they are going to perform out of their skins this time around. But there are still a lot of question marks about how the team's offense really looks overall as compared to some of the better offenses at this point of time, the settled offenses, if you really have to go down that path. So where do you feel what really needs to change inside that Dolphins room? Because they're coming closer to the time as Pittsburgh Steelers are heading in which direction, because Tomlin is not a bad coach. He's a fantastic individual. But now everyone is expecting results from him, which
Yeah.
has forced him to take abrupt calls. You never see Steelers going after, one season wonder players, or veterans who are just who may be available for just a season, like Aaron Rodgers is, but he's going all out to just make it to the playoffs and hope that he's going to win the Super Bowl. So is Mike McDaniel moving sort of that direction as Tomlin has, because he's also been successful, but not to that extent? Or do you think there are a lot of question mark and long term answers which still need a lot of rejigging at this point of time?
Yeah, well, Mike T's got a championship. You know what I mean? That's always the litmus test. I mean, that's the ultimate goal every single year, and he's never had a losing season. So he's always relevant every single year. Now you get into a situation where they're at, and they're dealing with a division that's tough. I mean, you got to deal with Baltimore all the time. You got to deal with Cincinnati all the time. And then when you don't have the quarterback situation, fixed before this year, Aaron Rodgers is going to be a huge boost for those guys. It's always a tough deal. So Mike McDaniel would love to be in Mike Tomlin's situation, having that type of success, having a Super Bowl ring. And that's always the ultimate goal. All these owners, they've got plenty of money. They've got plenty of success somewhere else, but their bragging rights is always about championship rings. So I think that's the most important thing for all of them. Our owner, Mr. Stephen Ross, that's all he cares about. He's got enough money. He wants to win championships because every time he goes to owners' meetings, he sees these other teams rocking their championship rings. And so I think that's the ultimate goal, and that's what Mike has to be striving for. My goal for this team personally this year is not necessarily to win a championship, because I don't know if we're there yet, but I want us to get in the playoffs. Hopefully win the division, which is going to be tough because Buffalo, and Josh Allen, they're a beast. We get rid of Tom Brady in the division, then we got Josh Allen we have to deal with. But get into the playoffs, win a football game, and then we build from there. So I mean that's my goal for this team. I know every team goes into training camp talking about we want to win a Super Bowl, but it starts off by winning your division, winning a playoff game, and then see where you go. So. I think that's what Mike needs to focus on right now. Winning that division, getting a home playoff game, winning that game, and then find a way to win the next one and see what happens from there.
Right. And I was about to talk about Josh Allen, because he's someone who hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, but still there are a lot of experts who keep saying that he's one of the finest quarterbacks in the league, probably as good as or even better than Patrick Mahomes. Individually, if we talk about quarterbacks with the kind of arm strength he has and the kind of overall fitness he carries and the kind of individual he is. But you feel there is any truth in those sort of comparisons? Is Allen the best quarterback at this point of time?
Well, if you look at talent, Dan Marino was the best quarterback at one point in time, wasn't winning Super Bowls. That's always Danny. Honestly, everybody, even some of the guys that won Super Bowls during this era, said Danny was the best quarterback in the league at that time. So that's the thing about football. It takes everybody. I mean, honestly, when you look at Josh Allen and the losses that he's had, most of them aren't on his watch. He's had going out there and had some great games, and maybe the defense didn't get something done, or maybe Pat Mahomes has outperformed their defense. He didn't outperform, Josh Allen. He outperformed the defense he was playing against, and that's the Buffalo defense at the time, which has been great as well. So if they ever get it all together, and that's what we never had. We had great offense, and the defense was just okay. Then we had great defense, and our offense was just okay, and that's why we never went as far as we'd want to. But you have to have all that together. Look at Philadelphia. Philadelphia had a great offense and they had a great defense. I mean, they hit home run in the draft. When they drafted Georgia, they had all those guys on that were starting from 2 years ago to last year. All those guys were a big part of what they were doing defensively. That's critical. Anytime anybody talks about Danny not winning Super Bowls, you can't win a Super Bowl by yourself in the NFL. You got to have really all three phases working well. And mostly every time even Tom won Super Bowls, look at how good his defense was. People don't give his defense enough credit on how good they were when they were winning Super Bowls. When you've got a defense that, Tom Brady takes them down and they score 7 points on the first drive, defense gives them a 3 and out, give the ball back to Tom. Next thing you know, Tom and that offense is up 14-0 or 10-0. And now you're scrambling. That has to be part of the whole equation as well. So I just think that, if our offense can be as good as I think it can be, we need Anthony Weaver, our defense coordinator, and that defense to be able to help us out as well. And that's part of winning football.
Absolutely, 100%, because that really makes 100% sense. Because by the time Tyreek Hill left the Chiefs, people were like, they aren't going to be the same team as they were before. And he went to the Dolphins, and people were like, they are going to outperform what they performed in the previous years. While on the other hand, Chiefs ended up winning one Super Bowl after that, made another Super Bowl, and lost in the finals. And they had a pretty ordinary season in terms of numbers. I mean, as far as Chiefs are concerned, not wins and losses. I'm talking about the kind of numbers, that the kind of touchdowns and receptions they were generating. Travis Kelce was looking completely out of sorts. Patrick Mahomes also looked a little fidgety in some of those games. They still ended up making the Super Bowl. It was like it was written in the script. So you felt somewhere that what really made that Kansas City Chiefs go to the Super Bowl, because clearly in the finals it felt like they didn't really belong there. I know Chiefs fans are going to come after me after this, but the way Philadelphia Eagles outplayed them, it felt like they had a pretty weaker opposition in front of them in the finals, if compared to that Justin Jefferson and Jalen Hurts led team. So what is your opinion about that 2024 season Chiefs, which made it all the way to the Super Bowl?
They made it to the Super Bowl, man. They're still they're a great team. They are an absolute great team, and they're going to be mad about the results of the Super Bowl coming into this season. So I any team that's playing against the Chiefs this year should be very, very worried that Patrick Mahomes and Kelce and everybody, they're going to be really, really, really upset about the results of that game last year. And they'll be back. The fact that they make it there all the time tells you how great they are. We talk about Tyreek leaving, but the Tyreek trade helped them build that defense. Same thing we're talking about with the Philadelphia Eagles and that defense being built to help out, that offense. The same thing happened for the Chiefs. Now they just have to get their, the run game, the wide receivers, going, and they'll be back to the same old Chiefs. I guarantee the Chiefs are going to be chomping at the bit to get back into that game, and it won't be the same result as last year. They might not win it, but hell, it won't be the blowout that it was this past Super Bowl.
Right. And let me do some of the repair work before the Chiefs fan kill me. The biggest compliment for those Chiefs, that 2024 Chiefs, is that they weren't at their best and they still made it to the Super Bowl.
Still made it.
Even if they're operating at 80-85% of their strength, they are still making it to the final hurdle. And that really tells you a lot about the chemistry the head coach has with the players, the kind of talent he has around him. And Andy Reid, I really feel he's one of those old school proper coaches who are sort of going a little extinct in the new day and age of football. People who expect just quick results and people coming in and changing everything and things of that sort. Andy, on the other hand, looks very subdued, very calm, collective at that point of time. He has his moments whenever they are required, but most of the times he's someone you feel like in the opposition camp, if you're there, you feel he knows something that you don't.
Yeah,
he has that plan in his head. So
yeah. Well, Andy Reid has done a great job of changing. He's morphed in terms of like the new day and age offense, the new day and age, personalities. These kids that are playing in the league now. I look at Andy Reid and watch his commercials. You can see he's got personality. So I can only imagine how the personality is also in the locker room, in the meetings, how he treats his team. You know what I mean? He's also trusted the right guys on the team to be the leaders of that team, and you go out and get the right guys. You go out there and get a Pat Mahomes. He had his eye on Pat Mahomes for a long time, like when he was coaching him, I think in the Senior Bowl, he said, man, that could be the guy that I want. And he went out and he laid low and he ended up getting Pat Mahomes, and he changed the history, for what was going on in Kansas City. And look what's been going on since. And so in Philadelphia, who didn't want him after he won all these division titles and went to Super Bowls and won conference titles. I mean, I'm glad that Philly's gotten a couple of Super Bowls since, but man, they had the man, in terms of Andy Reid, but I'm glad for both teams. It worked out for both teams, man. So I love Andy Reid. I think he's a model of how, older coaches can adapt to what's going on with the newer kids, the newer offenses, the newer nuances, and there's no better mind when it comes to offense than there is Andy Reid.
Right. And giving $500 million worth deal to one quarterback. I mean, that's a lot of money to even talk about at a time when it was not in the trend. I mean, now 50 million, 48 million, 45 million a year has become sort of the norm in the NFL. But by the time Patrick Mahomes was given a $500 million deal, everyone was like, Kansas City Chiefs are just going crazy. They're just splurging money out of nowhere. They are not heading into the right direction. What if he gets injured or loses his way after winning one Super Bowl or things like that? But now, if you go back and look at that deal, that is one of the best deals I feel ever made in the 20th century as far as NFL is concerned. So what is your opinion of these outlandish deals, that far-sightedness that the Chiefs front office had, and is that something missing with the Miami Dolphins, you feel?
Well, you know what? I mean, they did a great job with that deal because, it looked like a lot of money, which it was at the time, but it was like a 10-year deal, and when you do something like that, you're counting on your quarterback to be great for a long time. But also, though, you can spread that out. You can give them some guaranteed money. You can spread it out over a decade. It really doesn't come out to as much as what these guys are doing now when they're signing these 4-year deals worth way more than what Patrick Mahomes is making right now. So I think that no matter what, the Dolphins, in my opinion, have taken guys back to the table before they should have. I think that's hurt us in a little bit. I think guys need to play through the contracts that they sign. If they get to the last year of that deal, then you start talking about redoing the deal. But I think no matter what, the money's always going to be there. They've got guys upstairs in the accounting office that can make it work. So you just got to spend the money the right way. It's not about spending the money. It's about spending it the right way on the right guys and keeping the right guys, keeping your core. You also have to draft well. You have to develop. You can't let the guys you draft and they start playing well. You can't let them go other places. There's so much that goes into it. And I don't, I don't envy the guys like Chris Greer and Brandon Short that have to go out there, and manipulate this cap and make it happen and make it work. It's a lot of pressure, man. And the most pressure happens when other teams are winning and you're not. And I think that's what the Dolphins are feeling right now.
True. And, as far as the current scenario is concerned, apart from all the big money, all the big deals, a lot of those conversations in this day and age comes to the point that now injury management has become a lot better than what it was back in the day. And you being someone who really was taken aback by not getting the right sort of management you required when you had that awful toe injury, you feel in the present scenario things have changed, and how it has transformed from the time you were there in your playing days, and how things are at this point? Because Damar Hamlin, the way he collapsed on the field,
yeah,
I mean, there was panic all around the room. All of us who were watching the game also felt like,
yeah.
God forbid. I mean, we don't know how this might end, but thankfully he came back to the field, and he's someone who is really now become a cultural icon and become a hero for the people of Buffalo. So you feel that there is a major shift, or that there's still a lot of room for improvement?
Well, there's always going to be room for improvement. Like I talked about, the game has gotten so much bigger, stronger, faster. And also the medicine and technology has gotten a lot better. And the guys in their training has gotten a lot better. There's so more specific training for football and football moves and, what you're doing for your position that, these guys are, they're incredible at the way they can move. I go out there now and look at my size, and I'm standing next to the receivers now. I'm like, damn. I don't even know if I can get on the field right now with these guys, as big as they are, as strong as they are, and as fast as they are. So I think no matter what, the game is going to remain a tough sport. The medicine is caught up to it a lot of times. I think that some of these injuries these guys have, they're able to come back from them better, stronger, and quicker than they used to. But hell, they're going to keep coming, and these guys have to stay ahead of the curve. There's a lot of great specialists out there around the country. I wish I had seen a specialist with my foot before I did what I did and in my career. But I think a lot of guys are taking advantage of that. And there's some great doctors out there, and there's some bad ones out there. But you just got to make sure you find the right one for your situations.
Right. And, we have discussed a lot of serious stuff, and I just want to change the atmosphere a little bit and want to ask 2-3 fun questions from you. any story from the early days when you transitioned from the college to the NFL, when someone played a prank on you, or something interesting happened in the locker room that really made you, oh man, where am I, what am I gotten myself into?
Oh man, as a rookie, they don't, there's very little hazing allowed now. I wouldn't call it hazing. I call it razzing. They were razzing me a lot. Learning my school fight song, getting up there and singing, things like that. Going to buying Krispy Kreme donuts somewhere, and there's only like one of them in South Florida. You had to figure out where the hell it was. There's really no internet back there when I first started off, so you had to really like do some serious research to find certain things like that. Um, as a rookie, I had a group of veterans take me up and throw me in the cold plunge, and they know I don't go in the cold plunge on my own, and so they take me up and threw me in the cold plunge, and that really set me off right there. Um, I was late for a meeting that day because I was taped up in the cold plunge, and I got fined. The only time I ever got fined by Coach Shula was that day because I was late for a meeting. I told him what happened. He didn't give a damn, and I get it. You know what I mean? And so yeah, man, it was all good fun though, man. But once you go out there and you go out there and perform. And I took my first kickoff back in the preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons. And hell, after that, I was great with everybody on the team. Everybody was cool. So you go out there and perform, they'll leave the rookies alone. And that's what I tell all rookies to do. Stay humble, stay hungry, go out there and perform. They won't mess with you anymore.
And were you forced to pay some of those exorbitant rookie dinner bills? Now that what we see in this day and age.
No, I was not. I was not. I did not have to. Thank goodness the two receivers that we brought in that year, Irvin Fryer and Mark Ingram, they had just gotten a bunch of money from the team, so they looked out for me on that situation.
That's good to hear, because whenever we come across such stories, I mean, oh man, they have just made it to the NFL. Go easy on them. The kind of bills that come out, but teammates, they look out for each other, and they ended up making that atmosphere which really pushes those youngsters to really go all the way. And coming quickly to the second last segment of the show, three wide receivers you feel, either the current ones or some of the ones who have bid adieu to the game, you felt really matched the kind of gameplay you had. You felt you were the closest to the kind of gameplay they had.
You said current guys?
Yeah, current ones.
Yeah, current guys. I don't pay enough attention to other teams as I probably should. But you look at some of the guys that, most of those guys, like I said, they're bigger, stronger, faster than I was. So I play just a different type of ball game. I like a Cooper Kupp. I love the guys that work inside and they're tough inside. They block and they do the little things. We got a guy on our team named Malik Washington who I really like. I think he does a lot of things I did as well as return kicks. It works well on the inside. He blocks very well. Off top though, I think those are the guys, because everybody else I think about, they're either taller, bigger, faster. So my style of play was a little different. I was able to be a lot more physical as a wide receiver than they are now because the rules don't let me be as physical as I was. So if I have any, couple guys I could think about, it's probably those two guys right there.
Right. And a couple of quarterbacks at this point of time you feel are really close to the gameplay Dan Marino had?
See, Danny was such a great passer, man. I mean, and he had such great instincts. Wasn't the best mover, but the pure passers out there, man, the guys that spin it the best. I mean, hell, there a lot of them out there. I mean, you look at the Staffords and the Golfs; those guys still spin it very well. They might turn it over on occasion, but so did Danny. Any quarterback that hasn't thrown an interception hasn't played in the league at all. You know what I mean? I love Tua. I love a guy like Josh Allen, even though we have to deal with him so many times, because one thing about him is that I always say the best ability is availability, and that guy does not miss any games, and that's been one of our problems with Tua getting hurt. When Tua's in there, he's outstanding, but when we lose him, then we fall off, obviously, as an offense. So I think the guys like that, are just super talented. Pat Mahomes, a competitor, he's playing with, I think a broken ankle, won Super Bowl, and banged up here and there, but he goes out there and he still competes at the highest levels. The guys that are available, man, Lamar Jackson, he's a beast out there. Another guy that, has to find a way to get it done and finish games and win it all, even though he has great numbers in games. His team comes up short. Just another example of, you need more than just a great offensive quarterback or offensive system to win games. You got to have it all. So there's some great talent. It's fun to watch. Looking forward to my fantasy football draft to see who I end up getting. I usually draft a lot of Dolphins, and I haven't done as well as I'd like to in fantasy football because of that. I had Jonnu Smith last year, who we lost to Pittsburgh Steelers this year, but I'll figure out a way to get a few Dolphins on my team, and I'll find a way to win a championship in fantasy. But there's some great talent at the
all the very
quarterback
best
position.
for that.
Yeah.
And as quickly coming to a couple of conspiracy theories which had conjured after going through those internet sleuths sort of come up with those kind of stuff. Just wanted your quick opinion on that. So there was a theory that as far as Shedeur Sanders, because you had the experience of playing alongside Dion, there is a theory that prime tax is something which really prevented Shedeur from getting drafted up in during the 2025 draft, because he's a very marketable figure. And again, these are unverified reports completely. Just want your quick opinion on this. People are saying that Dion wanted 15% of the jersey sales coming for Shedeur Sanders to go to him. Like if Cleveland Browns are selling Shedeur Sanders' jersey and making let's say 20 million, they want 15% of that to go to Shedeur Sanders. And apart from that, all the deals and everything that also makes up his whole purse. That has prevented a lot of teams from going after Shedeur, and because Cleveland Browns are sort of in an era where they want to rebrand themselves, especially after all the Deshaun Watson sort of things that happened. What do you have to say about that conspiracy theory? Could this have been a reason behind his fall in the draft?
No, I'm not buying it. I'm not. I really am not. Shedeur is going to get a portion of his jersey sales no matter what. That's just part of the league. So he'll get a separate check other than the collective bargain agreed amount that guys get. I think there's a lot of things that might have contributed to Shedeur being it was in, from what I understand, it was more about how his interaction was with teams when he met with them. And I don't know if that's true or not either. I think no matter what, Shedeur is going to be a hell of a talent in this NFL. We saw that at Colorado. We saw that at Jackson State. He's got the great, obviously, lineage and the great coaching that he's had from his dad, Prime. So I don't think you would shy away from 15. If you've got a guy that's going to sell you $20-30 million worth of jerseys or whatever the number might be, I know you just threw that one out there. That percentage 15, that can't be a deal breaker if you got a guy that's going to change the trajectory of your franchise.
Absolutely. And finally, coming to the segment which I really like, OJ, you have been an absolute role model for a lot of kids who wanted to become wide receiver. And I'll just quickly touch upon the factors which really make me say that. Right from the point when you went to Hawking College, at that point of time, you made a name for yourself, not just in NFL, but in you tried your hand at basketball also, if I'm not wrong. You were great in track and field as well. You were a baseball player as well. You were there in the MLB draft as well, and you got drafted in the 41st as the 41st pick. If I'm not in the 41st round, I'm not quite sure about that particular thing. But I'm sure you were really you were drafted in the MLB as well. But you then passed on because you wanted to make a career in the NFL. So many achievements right from the time you started before, and then you went on to the NFL as an early achiever who went on to achieve great success at the top level as well. How did you manage to keep your head at the right place? Because we have seen people going haywire after one or two successful stints, or people peaking in the high school and then not really transferring that knowledge and sort of that performances at the highest level. You did it all throughout. Your jersey number in the school is retired. Then at Penn State, you had great numbers. And then into the NFL, you set a record for the number of receptions. So just to summarize all of that, what do you have to say about your achievements right from the day, and how did you keep a sane head through all of that?
Well, you know what, my mom for one, my mom kept me humble. She kept me hungry. She let me know that my what does stink at times. You know what I mean? And she was just a most amazing influence in my life that kept me, put me in the right position all the time. From me moving to Cleveland, Ohio when I was young, um, starting all over playing sports. I played sports all my life. Obviously, growing up, I played sports from age 5. I played football ever since I was 7 years old, playing all different sports. But everywhere I went, I had to prove myself all over again. And no matter what, 'cause there's always a new environment. So, going to Cleveland, these guys didn't know anything about me coming into junior high school. I showed them right away that I was, I could play all these 3 sports, football, basketball, and baseball. I could play all those sports, and I could play them at a pretty good level at that point. And then I went to my high school. They knew what I could do in junior high. In high school, because what I had done in junior high, but I still was going to a new atmosphere, a new environment. So I had to prove myself again. And then having great success in high school, you go to college, it's a whole different world. So you talk about a humbling experience. All the guys I went to college with, they were all great players from around the country, you know. So
Right.
nobody cared about what their numbers were in high school at that point. So you had to go out there and prove yourself all over again. And that's a humbling experience until I got that opportunity to show and prove. So I was always just grinding, working hard, trying to be the right example for everybody around me. And so that's always kept me grounded. When I got to Penn State and I wasn't starting, I wasn't the star on the team. I had to work my way in there. That kept me grounded. Then you have success at Penn State, and you go to the pros, and boom, you're back down again. And you got to prove yourself all over again. You got some veteran guys, the Urban Fryers, the Mark Ingrams, the Tony Martins, the Mark Dupers, and the Dan Marino as your quarterback. So you got to find yourself again. But you just keep working, keep grinding, stay on your mind. The brain is the key to all that. Staying mentally tough, staying in your playbooks, working off schedule, not just when they schedule stuff. That always kept me grinding my whole career. And I think that's the reason, man. And I try to carry that onto my kids now, and I try to carry that through life.
I mean, it will take a little time to process that, because that's such a fantastic answer, and because you really deserve the kind of success which came your way. And after that, you are not shying away from helping the people who are in need with Catch 81 Foundation as well. Tell us a little bit about that and how that idea came up in your head.
Yeah, my mom, Catch 81 Foundation was all about giving back to the community that's been so good to yourself. You know what I mean? It's always about giving back, because I've been blessed to live in South Florida for the last 32 years. I really have, man. It's imagine I mean, when I got drafted when I was getting drafted, I was hoping I can go close to home, Cleveland, Ohio, or even Cincinnati, Ohio, close to where Penn State was. So Philadelphia Eagles or Pittsburgh Steelers, or go warm. I got warm. I got Dan Marino. I got Don Shula, and this community has been great to me. They've been great to me from day one. And of course, it's important for me to give back, because I know what it took for me to be able to, to go to football camps, to go to school. I grew up with nothing, and there's a lot of kids in this country that don't have anything or need just a leg up, just a little bit of help. And that's what the Catch 81 Foundation is about, trying to help. And we haven't done any events in the last few years because, since my mom passed, we haven't done a lot. But it's like, same time though, it's still important to find a way to give back, because these kids need a little help at times.
Yeah, man. And I mean, it really fills my heart to talk to someone who has done so much as an individual, for his team, for his community, and still strives to just give back to the society who has given him so much and given him the right sort of platform. So it has been an absolute honor talking to you, OJ, and thanks a lot for really making this a fantastic interaction. Thank you so much for your time.
Man, thank you, man. That was awesome, man. I love all the great questions, man. I love to be able to reminisce, man. And thank you for bringing some of the great stuff out of me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and I hope we will have another interaction pretty soon, because this by far was my favorite interaction. I'm sorry to all the people and all the great guests.
Yeah, don't get yourself in trouble, man. Don't get in trouble now.
No, we'll edit this out. We'll edit this out in the final cut. But I just want to say that from person to person, it was a fantastic interaction. And your podcast is also there. I follow that as well, and I wish you all the best for that as well.
Thank you very much. We're really enjoying it. We're in phase 4 of our podcast right now, and we've got some great interviews. We got more lined up, and that's Levin and myself. We're just having a blast, being able to, to stay relevant, but also putting out some pretty good content.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, OJ.
Thank you. Have a good one. Appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thank you.